Hi everybody, it's Christopher and welcome to Life's Not Over, It Just Looks Different on YouTube. Many of my videos have been about my life with sight loss and cortical visual impairment, which was absolutely intentional and has been the main focus of this channel because I wanted to get that information out there. Because not everybody is able to relay what they see and experience with cortical visual impairment or that kind of sight loss. But I wanted to do this video today because I am more than just my sight loss. I am a fiance. I'm a feeder to 3 amazing cats. I'm an uncle to 2 fabulous nieces. And I am many more things to many more people. And one of the things that I am as well is a proud Canadian. We're just a couple of days past the Canada Day holiday, and I took yesterday off, so it became an extended long weekend, 4-day weekend. Gotta love that. And that also takes us into the fact that it is also the July 4th weekend. So happy 4th of July to all my US friends, family, and you watching. I really appreciate having you here. And in this video, I want to talk about what makes me a proud Canadian, or some of the things that I love about being Canadian. So today we're going to talk about some of my favorite foods, which are uniquely Canadian. We're going to talk about one of my favorite things ever, which is Canadian music. And I'm going to share a few of my favorite places in Canada that I like to visit. First, I want to talk about some of the things that I like to eat that are uniquely Canadian. One thing that I learned to make when I was about 9 years old, I went to a summer camp and they taught us how to make bannock, which is a very simple kind of bread that was popular amongst Aboriginal Canadians, especially way back when, but actually is still fairly popular. And at the Calgary Stampede, which again we're going to have this year coming up soon, there is a part of the Stampede that is called Indian Village, and in that Indian Village they let you try bannock, which is absolutely amazing. And so I love going there and getting a little snack of that. It's really kind of tasty. One thing that many kids in Canada love are ketchup potato chips, and pretty much every kid eats these. They are a staple in kids' lives in Canada. You know, as you get older, you start to outgrow ketchup chips. Most people do anyway. And your palate expands to enjoy other flavors, and maybe you find a different flavor. Mine happens to be sour cream and onion. But I have very fond memories of eating ketchup potato chips when I was a kid. I still enjoy them once in a while. And in fact, when this video is done, I'm going to enjoy this bag. Another treat that I've been told is uniquely Canadian is the Crispy Crunch bar. And again, as a kid, this was pretty much my favorite chocolate bar ever. I think it's popular amongst a lot of us here. Now, I did find out a number of years ago when I was down in the States, I found that there was another brand of chocolate bar or another chocolate making company that had a bar called a Crispy Crunchy. So there is something similar down there, but from what I've been told and from what I've been able to find, Crispy Crunch bar is a uniquely Canadian thing. Another baked treat that I really enjoy is butter tarts. I love butter tarts. People have tried to play with them over the years, make them different flavors and different concoctions, but there's nothing like a true original butter tart. They're just so tasty and something that I absolutely love to eat and I'll never turn down. Something else I love about living in Canada is Canadian music. We have so many great talents, some of whom have gone on to international fame around the world, but some who have stayed more local and just been proud Canadian bands moving, touring around the country, playing and entertaining. They're fixtures on Canadian radio, and there's a lot of great music out there. I mean, these are just a few of the CDs that are in my collection. There's many more, and it's everything from rock and roll to folk to country to comedy to whatever tickled my fancy at the time. And these days I'm not buying as many CDs, but I'm downloading or streaming a lot of different Canadian music. So, whereas on my discs I've got things like Anne Murray and Gordon Lightfoot and April Wine, Loverboy, Harlequin, Streetheart, my absolute all-time favorite band ever. And in my phone these days, because like I said, a lot of things are being downloaded, I've got things like Arkells and Nicky Yanofsky and Strumbellas. So many great bands there too that the music still keeps coming, and it just keeps getting better and better, and there's such amazing talent out there. It's not that we intentionally keep these bands all to ourselves. Some of them break through, some of them don't. But I love Canadian music. I support the Canadian content rules, and I'm proud that we have so many great artists in this country. Canada is a beautiful country with many wonderful places to see all across this country. And over the years, I've been very lucky to cover a lot of it, whether by plane, train, or automobile. Kind of sneaking in a movie plug there with another Canadian in it, John Candy. I've never traveled the complete country all in one continuous trip, but I've made many individual trips to different parts of Canada through any sort of transportation means. When I drove, I would take on long road trips with no problem. I really loved doing it, and I saw even more wonderful places when I was able to do that. There's just so many things to see. I mean, whether you're in Vancouver and you're on the coast, you know, the Pacific coast, and just Vancouver itself is a beautiful city. British Columbia is a beautiful province. And then, of course, there's Alberta with the Canadian Rockies, which now that I live here, having that in my backyard is just absolutely amazing. I lived in Northwest Ontario for many of the early years of my life, and I love going back there whenever I can, because whether I'm visiting my hometown of Atikokan or whether I'm going to visit Thunder Bay on the north shore of Lake Superior, there's just so many wonderful memories that I have of growing up in that part of the country. And just outside of Thunder Bay is an amazing place called Kekabeka Falls, which, as far as I'm concerned, it's a waterfall that could rival Niagara Falls on any given day. And don't get me wrong, I love Niagara Falls. I visited there many times. It's impressive. It deserves the title as one of the wonders of the world. But Kekabeka Falls is a little smaller, a little more quiet, a little less well known, and therefore it's one of my favorite places. I want to let you in on a little secret about one of my favorite places that I always wanted to see in Canada, and I finally got to do it just a couple of years ago. It was sort of a bucket list item because it's not that easy to get to, but it was so worth it. And that is White Otter Castle. White Otter Castle is something that I had heard about when I was growing up in Atikokan and being in that part of Ontario, because it's kind of tucked away and in the middle of nowhere, and I was fascinated by the legend of this building it's been known as White Otter Castle, but really it's just an amazing log structure that was built on the shore of White Otter Lake in Northwest Ontario, and the legend says that it was built by one man single-handedly. Getting to White Otter Castle is a bit of a mission all to itself, especially for a guy who doesn't drive. It took a lot of planning and it took some coordinating, but I had some amazing people help me out, and I was able to tick this thing off of my bucket list, because I had to fly from Calgary to Toronto and then from Toronto to Thunder Bay, because there were no direct routes from Calgary to Thunder Bay. So I did that, and then when I landed in Thunder Bay, the arrangement was that my cousins were going to pick me up there and drive me to Atikokan. But I had a couple of hours to kill when I landed in Thunder Bay, so I thought, well, what am I going to do at that time? I thought I want to go to Kekabeka Falls because it's only 20 minutes out of Thunder Bay. So I went outside, I found a cab driver. I said, how much will it be to get me to the falls? And he talked to his dispatcher and he said $80. I said, done, let's do it. So this cab driver drove me out to Kekabeka Falls, dropped me off there. I texted my cousins. I said, here's where I am. You can pick me up at the park instead of going all the way into town. They said, great. So that's what we did. And then they took me to Atikokan, where I hung out with my cousins for a few days. Had a wonderful time there. And after a couple of days of that, one of the staff from the lodge I was staying at on Clearwater Lake, one of the staff came down, picked me up, drove me out to the lodge, where I stayed for a couple more days. And on my one and only sort of full day there, another one of their staff took me by boat out to White Otter Castle. And it was quite a trek because we had to take the boat all the way across Clearwater Lake and then do a portage. And they had a truck and trailer there to load the boat. Took it on a portage over to White Otter Lake, dumped the boat back in the water, and took off to the castle. And then did all of that all the way back too. So It was quite an adventure to get there, but I'm really appreciative of my cousins being able to help me out, of the staff at the lodge I was staying at being able to help me out to do these things. It was a lot of fun, and now I've been able to tick White Otter Castle off of my bucket list. So far, I've given all of my love to Western Canada and some of Central Canada, what is truly Central Canada, not to be confused with Toronto being called Central Canada, because it's not. But I have lived in Toronto. I've also visited Montreal and Ottawa. I love those cities. They're fantastic places to be. And I also did an East Coast swing a number of years ago. In fact, it was my last big road trip before losing my sight, that last big road trip where I was driving. And I had an amazing time. We covered a lot of Prince Edward Island. We covered a lot of Nova Scotia, covered a little bit of New Brunswick. And we didn't make it to Newfoundland yet, so that's one still on my list of things to do. So far, at some point or other, I have made it to 9 of Canada's provinces. I've still got 1 province to go and the territories, but I will eventually get to see all of these things as well. It's just a little more difficult now that I'm not driving. I got to do it with other people and with other people's help, but it will happen because there's just so much to see and there's so many neat places to visit. And the people are different too. It's a lot of fun. Like, the East Coast is so laid back, and I had such a wonderful time with the people out there. So I really enjoyed that. I especially loved Halifax. I loved Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. It's a little fishing village, but it's also the home of the Blue Nose and the Blue Nose 2, a tall ship that you can see on the one side of the Canadian dime. That is the Blue Nose, and then its sister ship, the Blue Nose 2, which was built later, still sails out of that port. And actually, on my one and only trip to Lunenburg, I was able to take a tour of the Blue Nose 2. So that was a memory that will be permanently etched in my head and in my scrapbook. If you've been watching that video, that is forming part of my life scrapbook that I have been able to accomplish over the years. Over the past couple of years, Canada Day celebrations have been a little bit muted in this country and or canceled, because last year in 2020 we had the pandemic, which was rearing its ugly head, and we had to sort of scale things back and or cancel the events. And this year in 2021, Canada is at a reckoning with our legacy of residential schools that affected far too many Aboriginal people in this country, pretty much all of them. And it's a horrible, horrible thing that happened in this country, and something that I, as a Canadian, it saddens me, because as I've said, I love this country, I love living in this country, but I'm hurt by what has been discovered in the recent weeks and the last couple of months, with the discovery of the unmarked graves in Kamloops, BC, and then Cowessess First Nation in Saskatchewan, and more recently a First Nation in Cranbrook, BC. There's over 1,000 graves, unmarked graves, that have been discovered, and there's going to be more to come. This was something that was expressed through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission a few years ago, and it's going to happen. So this is a very bad, sad time in our country's history, and something that I hope we learn from, something that I want to learn from, something that I want to see our country do better and grow together. This is what I'm hoping for as we clear this Canada Day celebration, and hopefully move forward to much happier, much more inclusive, much more together celebrations in the years ahead. Not erasing or forgetting our past, but learning from it, acknowledging it, learning from it, and moving forward together so that we can create a better country as a whole. That's everything I wanted to share in this video on my life as a Canadian, a very proud Canadian. I am way more than just my sight loss, and way more than just a guy with cortical visual impairment. I've been able to do a lot of things, been many places, and I want to do so much more, because there's way more that I haven't seen, haven't experienced, and I love doing it all. I love being in this country. I love being Canadian. I know that we have some black marks in our history that we need to improve upon, learn from, and do better as we go forward. But I am hopeful. I am an eternal optimist that we can all do that together. We can move forward together. And I am hopeful for the future. And I want to thank you very much for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful day.